Emma had always believed that love followed rules, but standing in the elevator with her billionaire boss as the power went out, she realized that her heart had never read the employee handbook. For 3 years, she had been the perfect executive assistant to Alexander Sterling, maintaining professional boundaries while secretly falling deeper in love with him every day. But when a corporate scandal threatens to destroy everything Alexander has built, Emma discovers that the man she loves has been keeping secrets that could either save his empire or destroy them both forever. Before we dive into Emma's dangerous journey through the world of corporate intrigue and forbidden love, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you more captivating romantic drama stories every week. Now, let's discover how one night in a stalled elevator changed everything for Emma Clark and her powerful boss. Emma Clark had perfected the art of being invisible. At 26, she had spent 3 years as the executive assistant to Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, one of New York's most powerful investment firms. Her job required her to anticipate his needs, manage his schedule, and handle his most confidential business matters, all while maintaining the kind of professional demeanor that made her seem like an extension of his office furniture, rather than a living, breathing woman with her own thoughts and desires. Emma had accepted this role willingly because she was exceptional at her job and because the salary allowed her to support her younger brother through medical school. What she hadn't anticipated was falling hopelessly in love with her boss, a man who seemed to exist in a completely different universe from her own. Alexander Sterling was everything the business magazines said he was: brilliant, ruthless, devastatingly handsome, and worth more money than most people could comprehend. At 34, he had built Sterling Industries from a small family firm into a global powerhouse through a combination of strategic thinking, calculated risks, and a work ethic that bordered on obsessive. He was also intensely private, emotionally guarded, and completely focused on his business empire to the exclusion of almost everything else. Emma's feelings for Alexander had developed slowly, growing from professional admiration into something much deeper and more complicated. She had seen him at his best during successful deals and acquisitions, watching him command boardrooms full of powerful men twice his age with quiet confidence and sharp intelligence. She had also seen him at his most vulnerable during late nights when exhaustion made him drop his carefully maintained facade, revealing glimpses of loneliness and doubt that he would never admit to feeling. The problem was that Alexander seemed to view Emma as nothing more than an extremely competent employee. He trusted her with sensitive information, relied on her judgment for important decisions, and treated her with professional respect, but he had never given any indication that he saw her as a woman rather than simply his assistant. Emma had convinced herself that this was for the best, since any romantic relationship between them would be completely inappropriate and potentially career-ending for both of them. Sterling Industries had strict policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates, and Alexander was notoriously careful about avoiding any behavior that could be construed as unprofessional. Emma had heard the whispers about his past relationships, all of which had been with women from his own social circle who could match his wealth and status. She was just a middle-class girl from Queens who had worked her way through college and business school, hardly the type of woman who typically caught the attention of billionaire CEOs. The morning that changed everything started like any other Monday in October. Emma arrived at the Sterling Industries building at 7:30, an hour before Alexander was scheduled to arrive, to review his schedule and prepare for the day ahead. Alexander had meetings with potential investors, a conference call with their London office, and a dinner with board members that evening. It was a typical day in the life of a CEO, packed with high-stakes decisions and million-dollar deals. Alexander arrived at his usual time, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that had probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. He greeted her with his standard professional nod and asked for his morning briefing, which Emma delivered with her usual efficiency. She had learned to read his moods from subtle cues like the set of his shoulders or the tone of his voice, and this morning she sensed that something was bothering him beyond the normal stress of running a multinational corporation. Throughout the day, Emma noticed that Alexander seemed more tense than usual. His meetings ran longer than scheduled, his phone calls were more intense, and he spent more time than normal staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office. Emma managed to schedule adjustments and handled the overflow of calls and emails, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was happening behind the scenes. Her suspicions were confirmed when Alexander's lawyer, Patricia Morrison, arrived unannounced that afternoon and was immediately ushered into Alexander's office for what appeared to be a very serious conversation. Emma couldn't hear what they were discussing, but she could see through the glass walls that both Alexander and Patricia looked grim. The meeting lasted for over 2 hours, and when Patricia left, she looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. After Patricia's departure, Alexander called Emma into his office and asked her to cancel all his appointments for the rest of the week. This was unprecedented. Alexander never canceled meetings unless he was literally hospitalized. Emma asked if there was a family emergency or if she needed her to reschedule rather than cancel, but Alexander simply said that something had come up that required his immediate and complete attention. Emma spent the rest of the afternoon fielding angry calls from investors and board members who were not pleased to have their meetings canceled at the last minute. She managed to smooth over most of the conflicts with her diplomatic skills and promises that Alexander would reschedule as soon as possible, but she remained curious and concerned about what could have prompted such drastic action. That evening, as Emma was preparing to leave the office, Alexander emerged from his office looking more disheveled than she had ever seen him. His tie was loose, his hair was mussed from running his hands through it, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. He asked Emma if she had a few minutes to discuss something important, and despite the late hour, she immediately agreed to stay. Alexander poured himself a drink from the bar in his office, something Emma had never seen him do during work hours, and offered her one as well. She declined, sensing that whatever he needed to tell her required her full attention and clear thinking. Alexander sat down across from her at the small conference table in his office, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt like he was really seeing her as a person rather than just his assistant. Alexander began by thanking Emma for her loyalty and discretion over the years, saying that he had come to rely on her judgment and professionalism more than she probably realized. He told her that what he was about to share with her was extremely confidential and potentially dangerous, in that she had the right to refuse to get involved if she felt uncomfortable with the situation. Emma assured Alexander that she was willing to help him with whatever he needed, and she meant it. Over the years, she had developed not just romantic feelings for him, but also genuine respect and loyalty that went beyond her job description. She could see that he was in some kind of serious trouble, and her instinct was to protect and support him however she could. Alexander explained that Sterling Industries was being investigated by federal prosecutors for potential securities fraud. Someone had been feeding inside information about upcoming deals to outside investors, allowing them to make millions of dollars through illegal trading. The investigation had been going on for months without Alexander's knowledge, and now prosecutors were preparing to file charges against the company and potentially against Alexander personally. Emma felt her heart sink as she listened to Alexander's explanation. She knew that securities fraud was a serious federal crime that could result in both heavy fines and prison time. If Alexander was charged and convicted, he could lose everything he had worked to build, including Sterling Industries, his personal fortune, and his freedom. Alexander continued, explaining that he was innocent of any wrongdoing, but that someone within Sterling Industries had been using their access to confidential information to commit the fraud. The betrayal was personal as well as professional, since it meant that someone Alexander trusted had been systematically sabotaging the company for their own financial gain. The prosecutors were offering Alexander a deal. If he could identify the person responsible for the insider trading and provide evidence of their guilt, they would consider dropping the charges against him and the company. But Alexander had no idea who the guilty party was, since several key employees had access to the information that had been leaked. Emma listened to Alexander's dilemma with growing horror and determination.
she realized that he wasn't just sharing this information with her, he was asking for her help in identifying the traitor within Sterling Industries. As his executive assistant, Emma had access to employee schedules, phone records, email systems, and financial information that could potentially reveal who had been selling secrets to outside investors. Alexander acknowledged that what he was asking Emma to do was potentially dangerous and definitely outside her job description. If the guilty party discovered that Emma was investigating them, she could become a target for retaliation or intimidation. Alexander said that he would understand if Emma wanted to distance herself from the situation and that he would provide her with excellent references if she decided to find another job. Emma didn't hesitate before telling Alexander that she would help him however she could. She explained that Sterling Industries wasn't just her workplace, it was a company filled with good people whose livelihoods depended on its survival. If someone was sabotaging the company for personal gain, Emma wanted to help expose them and protect the innocent employees who could lose their jobs if Sterling Industries was forced to shut down. Alexander looked at Emma with an expression she had never seen before, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something else that made her heart race. He told her that her loyalty meant more to him than she could understand, and that he had never met anyone with her combination of intelligence, integrity, and courage.
Over the next several days, Emma and Alexander worked together like partners rather than boss and assistant. Emma used her access to company systems to compile lists of employees who had access to the leaked information, while Alexander reviewed trading patterns and timeline data provided by the prosecutors. They worked late into the night, sharing takeout dinners in Alexander's office and analyzing data until their eyes burned from staring at computer screens. As they worked together, Emma began to see sides of Alexander that she had never experienced before. Away from the pressures of board meetings and investor calls, he was warmer, more relaxed, and surprisingly funny. He asked about her family, her education, and her dreams for the future, treating her like a person with her own life and ambitions, rather than just an employee. Alexander, for his part, was discovering that Emma was far more than the efficient assistant he had taken for granted for 3 years. She was insightful, analytical, and creative in her problem-solving approach. She noticed patterns that he had missed and asked questions that led to important breakthrough moments in their investigation. He found himself looking forward to their evening work sessions, not just because they were making progress on the case, but because he genuinely enjoyed Emma's company. Their breakthrough came on Thursday evening, when Emma noticed something unusual in the phone records of Marcus Webb, Sterling Industries' head of mergers and acquisitions. Marcus had been making calls to the same phone number on the days immediately preceding every instance of insider trading. When they traced the number, it belonged to a small investment firm that had made suspicious profits on Sterling Industries deals. Further investigation revealed that Marcus had been systematically leaking information about upcoming mergers and acquisitions to his contact at the investment firm in exchange for substantial cash payments. Marcus had gambling debts that he had been trying to hide from his wife and colleagues, and the money from insider trading had been his way of staying ahead of his creditors. Alexander felt both relief and betrayal when they uncovered Marcus's guilt. Relief because they had found the evidence needed to clear Alexander and Sterling Industries, and betrayal because Marcus had been someone Alexander considered a friend as well as a colleague. Marcus had been with the company for 5 years and had been invited to Alexander's home for dinner parties and holiday celebrations. Emma comforted Alexander as he processed the emotional impact of Marcus's betrayal, reminding him that Marcus's choices were not a reflection of Alexander's judgment or leadership. She helped him prepare the evidence package for the prosecutors and coordinate with Patricia Morrison to ensure that everything was handled properly from a legal standpoint. The confrontation with Marcus took place on Friday morning in Alexander's office, with Patricia present as a witness. When presented with the evidence of his insider trading, Marcus broke down and confessed to everything. He begged for forgiveness and explained about his gambling addiction and the threats he had been receiving from loan sharks, but Alexander was too hurt and angry to show any sympathy.
Marcus was immediately terminated and escorted from the building by security. Within hours, federal agents arrived to arrest him, and by the evening news, the story was breaking about the insider trading scandal at Sterling Industries and the arrest of the executive responsible. Alexander held a company-wide meeting that afternoon to explain what had happened and assure employees that Sterling Industries would continue operating normally. The prosecutors had indeed dropped all charges against Alexander and the company in exchange for his cooperation in the case against Marcus. The stock price, which had plummeted when news of the investigation first leaked, began to recover as investors realized that Alexander had been cleared of any wrongdoing. That evening, after the crisis had passed and the building was empty except for security guards, Alexander asked Emma to have dinner with him to celebrate their success in solving the case. Emma agreed, expecting that they would order takeout and eat in his office as they had been doing all week, but Alexander surprised her by suggesting they go to a nice restaurant to mark the end of their investigation. Emma was nervous about having dinner with Alexander outside the office, since it felt more like a date than a business meeting. But she was also excited by the possibility that their relationship might be evolving beyond the professional boundaries they had maintained for 3 years. She went home to change clothes and met Alexander at an elegant restaurant in Midtown that was far more romantic than any place she would have expected her boss to choose for a business dinner.
Over dinner, Alexander thanked Emma again for her help in solving the case and told her that he couldn't have gotten through the crisis without her support and expertise. He admitted that working so closely with her had made him realize how much he had been taking her for granted and how valuable she was, not just as an employee, but as a person. Emma felt her heart racing as Alexander spoke, wondering if he was leading up to the kind of conversation she had been dreaming about for 3 years. Alexander seemed nervous, which was unusual for him, and he kept pausing as if he was trying to find the right words for something important. Finally, Alexander told Emma that the events of the past week had made him realize that life was too short to ignore his feelings or hide behind professional conventions. He said that he had been attracted to Emma for much longer than he had been willing to admit to himself, but that he had convinced himself it would be inappropriate and unfair to her to act on those feelings. Alexander explained that his previous relationships had been with women who were primarily interested in his wealth and status, and that he had begun to believe that genuine love was something that existed only in movies and novels. But working with Emma during the crisis had shown him what it felt like to have a true partner, someone who cared about him as a person rather than just his bank account. Emma could hardly believe what she was hearing. Alexander continued, saying that he knew a relationship between them would be complicated because of their professional relationship, but that he was willing to make whatever adjustments were necessary to explore their feelings for each other. He offered to help Emma find an equally good position at another company if she preferred to avoid the complications of dating her boss, or to restructure their working relationship at Sterling Industries to minimize any conflicts of interest. Emma told Alexander that she had been in love with him for longer than she cared to admit, but that she had convinced herself their relationship would always be strictly professional, and that she had resigned herself to loving him from a distance while he eventually married someone from his own social circle. Alexander reached across the table and took Emma's hand, telling her that her background and social status meant nothing to him compared to her intelligence, loyalty, and strength of character. He said that the woman he had fallen in love with was the one who had stayed late to help him solve an impossible problem, who had comforted him when he felt betrayed by someone he trusted, and who had shown courage in the face of potential danger. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes as she listened to Alexander's declaration of love. She told him that she had never imagined this moment could be real, that she had dreamed of it but never believed it could actually happen. Alexander smiled and said that sometimes the most important things in life came disguised as impossible dreams. They spent the rest of dinner talking about how they wanted to handle their relationship going forward. Alexander suggested that Emma could transition to a different role within Sterling Industries, perhaps as a vice president in charge of special projects,
which would give her more independence while still allowing them to work together. This would eliminate the direct supervisor-subordinate relationship that made their romance potentially problematic from a company policy standpoint. Emma was thrilled by the suggestion since it would represent a significant promotion and allow her to take on more challenging and creative work. She'd always been interested in the strategic side of the business, and Alexander said that her analytical skills and problem-solving abilities would make her excellent at developing new initiatives for the company. Over the following weeks, Emma transitioned into her new role while she and Alexander began dating discreetly. They were careful to maintain professional boundaries at work while exploring their personal relationship outside the office. Emma discovered that Alexander was even more wonderful as a boyfriend than she had imagined. He was attentive, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in her opinions and dreams. Alexander, for his part, found that being with Emma brought out sides of his personality that he had forgotten existed. She made him laugh, challenged his assumptions, and helped him remember that there was more to life than work and business success. He began leaving the office earlier to spend time with Emma, taking weekends off for the first time in years, and even talking about taking a real vacation. Their relationship remained private for several months while they navigated the transition from colleagues to romantic partners. Emma's promotion was announced as a recognition of her outstanding work during the insider trading crisis, and her colleagues were genuinely happy for her success. No one suspected that there was anything romantic between Emma and Alexander, since they were both careful to maintain professional behavior during business hours. The turning point in their relationship came during Sterling Industries' annual holiday party, an elaborate affair held at one of New York's most exclusive hotels. Emma had been planning to attend alone, as she had for the previous 3 years, but Alexander privately asked if she would be his date for the evening. Emma was nervous about making their relationship public, but Alexander assured her that he was ready to stop hiding his feelings for her. He said that he loved her and was proud to be with her, and that he didn't care what anyone else thought about their relationship. At the party, Alexander made a point of staying by Emma's side throughout the evening, introducing her to board members and important clients as his girlfriend rather than his former assistant. Emma was initially uncomfortable with the attention, but she gradually relaxed as she realized that people were genuinely pleased for both of them. The evening's highlight came when Alexander asked Emma to dance, and they moved together on the dance floor while the entire Sterling Industries family watched. As they swayed to the music, Alexander told Emma that he loved her and wanted to spend the rest of his life making her happy. Emma looked up at the man she had loved from afar for 3 years and realized that sometimes fairy tales did come true, even for ordinary girls from Queens who fell in love with their billionaire bosses. She told Alexander that she loved him too, and that she couldn't imagine her life without him. 6 months later, Alexander proposed to Emma during a weekend getaway to his house in the Hamptons. He had planned an elaborate surprise, with flowers, candles, and a ring that sparkled like starlight. But when the moment came, he simply told Emma that she had saved his life in more ways than one and asked if she would marry him. Emma said yes, without hesitation, and they spent the evening planning their future together. Alexander told Emma that he wanted her to be his partner in every sense of the word, in business as well as in life. He offered to make her a full partner in Sterling Industries, giving her an equal say in all major decisions, and the opportunity to shape the company's future direction. Emma accepted Alexander's proposal both for marriage and for business partnership, realizing that she was about to become not just the wife of a billionaire CEO, but a powerful executive in her own right. The girl who had once been invisible had found her voice and her place in the world through the love of a man who saw her true worth.
Their wedding was an elegant affair attended by business leaders, politicians, and celebrities, but Emma only had eyes for Alexander as they exchanged vows. As she promised to love and support him for the rest of her life, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought them together and the crisis that had revealed their true feelings for each other. The CEO's forbidden assistant had become his equal partner and greatest love, proving that sometimes the most important business deal was the one that involved opening your heart to the person who had been standing beside you all along. Their love story became legendary within Sterling Industries, inspiring other employees to believe that authentic love could overcome any professional obstacle when it was built on mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to follow your heart even when the rules said it was impossible.